Hey everyone, welcome. Happy Friday. Happy Friday the 13th. We are ushering in a new fall soon, so that's exciting. A few more people are joining us out of the waiting room, so giving them an opportunity to get settled with their audio and video, and then we will get started. Okay, I think that's everyone. Well, thank you all for being here. Happy Friday. My name is Sam. I'm a project manager here at the Data and Research Center, which is part of the All of Us Research program. Today's presentation is focused on the Cohort Builder and the Dataset Builder. And so I am joined by a few of my colleagues. So if you have questions related to our presentation today, feel free to put that in the chat. If you have questions unrelated to the presentation, we do ask that you kindly email us at support@researchallofus.org. There you will be able to get answers to your questions, or you can join us for our next drop-in office hours if you're a registered user of the Workbench, which is happening on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central Time. So today's presentation is just going to focus on the Cohort Builder and the Dataset Builder. But before we get started with that, I thought I'd just quickly highlight the data types and offerings that we have within the All of Us Researcher Workbench. And then we're going to go into the Cohort Builder and Dataset Builder with some examples, and then followed by open Q&A if time allows. Yes, there will be a recording of this presentation, and yes, I will have it posted to the User Support Hub and our YouTube channel within the week after today's date. I will also post the slides to this presentation so that if you want to talk or join in with your colleagues at your institution about this, I will have that posted as well. I just wanted to make a really quick disclaimer today. So in this presentation, I'm highlighting features of the Researcher Workbench to include the Cohort Builder and the Dataset Builder. Because participant privacy is of the utmost importance here at the All of Us Research program, I will be utilizing an operational environment that is close to the Data and Research Center. So if you're following along in your own Cohort Builder or Dataset Builder, your counts may be slightly different than mine. So before we jump into the Cohort Builder and the Dataset Builder, I think it's kind of important to understand more about the data types and where the data is stored on the Researcher Workbench. This will then provide clarity of the function of our point-and-click tools. So we offer many data types here at the All of Us Research program, which includes surveys, electronic health records, physical measurement data, and wearable device data. We also provide genomic data as well. Depending on what you need to use or your study design, you can use the Cohort Builder and the Dataset Builder to help you select specific data offerings easily with the point-and-click interface. So the All of Us data I mentioned on the last slide is stored in a secure cloud-based platform via Google Cloud Platform. And we note this data as the CDR, or the Curated Data Repository. And so that data repository is stored within Google Cloud. So then you're like, how do I get access to that data? So BigQuery is a serverless data analytics platform, and the CDR is securely contained there. And in order to interact with BigQuery, you'll need to use SQL. Well, we understood that everyone isn't savvy with SQL, so we created these point-and-click tools that I'm going to dive into today. So in the Researcher Workbench, that is the language that they're used to call in the data set. And there's two options for you to do that. You can use the point-and-click tools, which we'll get into today, or you can create your own custom query. So I do want to highlight a couple advantages to using one option over the other. So the Cohort Builder and the Dataset Builder are point-and-click tools. They're easy to use. They have a really nice look and feel to them. You can, add certain criteria, you can exclude certain things, and you can see it very easily in your workspace without having to spin up an environment initially. However, if you use option 2, that does require basic knowledge of SQL and our All of Us data structure. But the advantage of using your own custom query, it does offer some additional flexibility of your cohort queries. SQL has some high-poweredness to it if you're used to it. So that's just another advantage. But today we're going to focus on option 1. If you're interested in option 2, please go to our User Support Hub page. there is a video called Data Wrangling in the Researcher Workbench that one of our data scientists did, and she will explore more about how to create your own custom query in the Workbench. So there are a few main sections of the Researcher Workbench to help researchers navigate the dataset more easily. So your workspace is where you're going to build and analyze your dataset. And within your workspace, you can select participants based on specific criteria using the Cohort Builder tool. And then another tool, which is the Dataset Builder, allows you to select variables or values of interest, which we denote as concepts about your cohort. And then you can save and export your data set to a notebook or your analysis platform like RStudio, SAS, etc., whichever one you feel is best. The Data tab within the workspace is where our point and click tools live. And on the right side, you can select the eye icon, which will have some more tips and tricks about the Dataset Builder and the Cohort Builder to include the way that we define cohorts, concept sets, and data sets. Sometimes understanding that language will help you as you get to use the tools. So I'm going to start with the Cohort Builder and Cohort Review, and then from there, we're going to go into the Dataset Builder. I use some little icons so you know where we're at and which feature I'm highlighting. So the Cohort Builder tool provides that point-and-click interface that's going to allow you to include or exclude certain types of participants that you want in your study. So the goal of the Cohort Builder is essentially to pull in person IDs based on your inclusion and exclusion criteria. Essentially, it's just defining your population of interest. Within the Cohort Builder, there are some advanced features, such as the temporal feature. You can apply some modifiers, and you can even use the variant search. The variant search function is great if you want to construct your cohort on genomic data. We're going to discuss each of these features in turn, but if you want more information about them in detail, we have some information on the User Support Hub as well. When you're in the Data tab and go to the Cohort Builder, this is what it's going to look like. So if you don't have Researcher Workbench access yet, no worries. I just wanted to show you what the interface will look like. You'll get some group counts based on your inclusion or exclusion criteria, and you can always save your cohort for later editing or if you want to use it in other parts of the workspace. Within the Cohort Builder, the temporal feature allows you to create a cohort with temporal inclusion or exclusion criteria. Basically, this is considering clinical events between each other. So if you have a clinical event and you want to know if it happened during, the same, or before another clinical event, then temporal feature might be really nice to use. I do want to note the temporal feature is only applicable to electronic health record data and is still only pulling person IDs. It's not pulling in the data wrangled that way. It's just helping you kind of get a use case sense of the N number if you are looking at specific temporality of events. We have a very extensive User Support Hub article about the temporal feature, and we also have a previous office hours as well. I put a quick example here that we used in our User Support Hub article, but let's say you want to use the temporal feature just to kind of like learn about it. So if you want to select participants who have malignant tumor of the breast, so you would toggle on the temporal feature, and you can say, I want the first mention of the malignant tumor of the breast in their EHR records that was recorded 30 days or more prior to the use of tamoxifen, which may be a drug of choice for the oncologist to treat the cancer. And you're just seeing how many person IDs are related to that. So that would be a good use case of the temporal feature. Now, again, it only pulls the person ID, so additional data wrangling and cleaning would be needed once you get your data set into your notebook. Another feature within the Cohort Builder, which I actually really enjoy, is the apply modifiers. You have the option to apply specific modifiers after you select a specific cohort criteria. So these modifiers can include an age at event or occurrences in EHR. Let's say I want to make sure that this participant has enough EHR records about this type of condition. So you can even flag it to say, I only want participants in which diabetes occurs in their EHR 2 or more times. It also allows you to kind of refine it more by lab values or even visit type. Using the Cohort Builder variant feature, you can filter by gene, consequence, ClinVar significance, allele count, allele numbers, and allele frequency. You can also look at or include all participants who have structural variant data. Now, today I won't go into detail about the variant search because we recently had an office hour video a couple months ago, specifically about the variant search, in which we gave some use case examples of how to utilize the variant search for your project. You can visit our YouTube channel or the User Support Hub to learn more. Now, after you build a cohort, you might want to look more into your cohort, and Cohort Review is a really nice tool. So it allows you to validate your inclusion and exclusion criteria kind of by looking at that participant row level data. So let's say that you had a group count from your cohort of 50,000 people. You can do a quick cohort review of up to 10,000 participants to just kind of look through and scan and make sure the inclusion and exclusion criteria you included in your cohort was as you expected. Note, this is an optional step. It's not required for you to do, but sometimes it's a really nice way to see how your cohort is basically laid out before exporting into the Dataset Builder. And this is what cohort review looks like. So the only way to access this is after you've created a cohort and saved it, it'll bring you to this page, which will allow you to create another cohort or create a review set of your cohort. And we'll look at that in the demo shortly. So after you create your cohort, you can then begin to build your data set using our three-step Dataset Builder tool. While the Cohort Builder will narrow down the participants of interest, the Cohort Builder is going to allow you to select the variables and values of interest that you're wanting to research about your cohort. A very frequently asked question that I get, so I'll answer it right now, is, must I include the same concepts that I put in the Cohort Builder in the Dataset Builder? And the answer is, typically, yes. Let's say that you built your cohort on hypertension cases and you want to learn more about when that diagnosis of hypertension was given. You're going to want to add the concept set in the Dataset Builder along with the concept sets you added in the Cohort Builder. As I mentioned, the Dataset Builder tool provides a point-and-click interface that helps you build a dataset in a three-step process. So first, you can select the cohorts that you just created in your Cohort Builder. They will automatically populate in that first column. Then you can select concepts about your cohort from the various data domains that I highlighted at the beginning of this presentation. You can examine lab measurements, you can examine conditions, surveys, wearable device data, etc. After creating your custom concept set, you can utilize that in the Dataset Builder or our prepackaged concept sets that our data apps team has worked really hard to create for you. So for example, you may want to include values that describe information about a concept to include the visit type or the start date. You'll want to add those in the very last column, which I'll show you in just a moment. So when you're in the Researcher Workbench, that's what this will look like. This is our Dataset Builder, and that's that three-step process that I just highlighted. You're going to select your cohort. Well, that's going to be the cohorts you created in the Cohort Builder. You're going to select concept sets. You can use one of our prepackaged concept sets that are listed below, or if you select that blue plus sign in column 2, you can add your own custom concept set. And then once you do that, in step 3, that last column will populate with fields such as person ID, gender, etc. Those are your columns. And then at the very bottom, you'll then create your data set once that all looks good. One thing I didn't put here, but I'll put in our demo is you can preview the data set to make sure that you've included information that you want. One thing I'll note about the Dataset Builder is you may not need all the field values that populate in that very third column. That can make your data frame pretty large. So I'll give you some recommendations on things to maybe consider excluding before you create your data set. So here's an overview of the exercise we're going to run through today. If you're a registered user of the Researcher Workbench, feel free to follow along. If not, no worries. This demonstration part is open to everyone. I'm just going to pick a few concepts in our Cohort Builder, Dataset Builder, and then show you what it looks like when you export to Jupyter, RStudio, or SAS. But before I do that, I just wanted to see if anyone had any questions, because I will probably move pretty quickly through the demo. Okay. So if you already have a Researcher Workbench account, this is what the Workbench will look like. If you are new to the All of Us Research program and are in the process of creating an account, this is a great kind of tutorial for you to see what you're going to get into. So on the landing page, you'll notice that you have all your workspaces, or you can go to featured workspaces and other options here. But today I'm not going to go into how to create a workspace. I'm going to utilize a workspace I already have created. So within a workspace, there are three main tabs: the data tab, the analysis, and the about. So the data tab is the one we're going to focus on today. The analysis tab is going to house your notebooks, your SAS, your RStudio, and the about tab is going to help you learn more about your workspace description, billing, etc. So as I mentioned, if you're new, you're going to start with these two point and click tools. So the Cohort Builder is just creating your group of participants of interest. So to get into the Cohort Builder, you'll select this plus sign. And the first thing you'll see is there's not much here. So before the rest of it populates, you're going to have to add one criteria or inclusion criteria to get started. I use some basic conditions, hypertension, diabetes, just to make sure everyone kind of understands. Hypertension is a favorite because it runs in my family. So let's say we're going to search hypertension. This keyword search is going to bring in all the data that we have available about this keyword search. So as you can see, we have some information from hypertension in our surveys. We also have it in about 4 EHR domains. So the conditions, procedures, drugs, and observations. I'm going to stick with the condition domain, which is pulling from the condition occurrence table. So here are some fun features I want to highlight within the Cohort Builder that is, for new users, kind of hard to understand. So first, it's going to list all the concepts related to that keyword search. So as you can see, there's quite a few. And that's going to be the name of the concept that I'm looking at. This concept ID is going to come from basically more information. It's a unique ID based from the OMOP Common Data Model. You can see the source or standard. Okay, so this is going to be a source coded from SNOMED. And you can get more code information about the vocabulary. Now, these two items are also a popular topic, roll-up count and item count. So one thing I want to highlight is these eye icons are there to help you to learn more what everything means. So this roll-up count is going to tell you the number of distinct participants, as it notes, that either have a parent or child concept of this original one. So hypertension disorder is a parent concept. You could have essential hypertension. You can have hypertension after a specific event. Let's say they have MI and then they had a hypertensive crisis. Those are all bundled child codes under the parent of hypertensive disorder. But let's say you only wanted the information related to just hypertensive disorder. That would be the item count. That's just the distinct participants for this concept alone. What will help you understand that is to view the hierarchy, which I'm going to select here. Viewing the hierarchy is going to help you understand what are the parent and child codes underneath this. So if you select hypertensive disorder, it's going to select all the child codes. So just kind of be mindful of that. That question comes up a lot as when users export their data set into the notebook, they're like, hey, I'm seeing all of these new concept names. I thought I only selected hypertension. It's likely pulling these child codes along with it. So if you select hypertensive disorder, it's going to see that it's blocked out all of those child codes as well. So it's going to pull in all of that information, which is going to indicate that roll-up count. When you select a concept, you can press finish and review. But remember I mentioned that apply modifiers feature. That's going to populate here. So in this option, you can apply modifiers, meaning let's say I want to have participants that have the age of 45 years or older. And I want to have it during maybe an EHR visit. You can calculate here how many participants are going to fit that criteria for this specific concept, which will help you kind of denote, do I want to refine my cohort based on this information more? So then you can apply the modifier, and then you can save the criteria, which will then you notice populated the other things about the cohort builder. Now, I want to highlight this part here. You can add another criteria as the or operator, or you can add it between the and. If you add it between the or, it's going to say, I want this concept or this concept. And it will pull either one. But if you say, I want participants who have hypertensive disorder and are in a specific demographic category, you're going to want to put it between the two groups. That will help you to make sure that you're getting your total count related to that and operator. So for me, I will then pick the demographic category of race and Black or African American, Asian, or another single population. And then save criteria. Now, another thing I want to highlight are, you're going to say, well, these group counts aren't making a lot of sense to me. Great question. So the group count is related to this one group. So it's the number of participants that have this inclusion criteria, and this is related to the number of participants who have this inclusion criteria. But your total count is going to say this plus this. They have hypertension and are in these race categories, and that's going to be your total count. So sometimes that might be really helpful to kind of think through as well. The high charts are really nice here in the Cohort Builder. It can kind of give you more of a quick breakdown, so you can kind of see, how does my cohort land based on my inclusion and exclusion criteria? You can filter the results by race, ethnicity, sex assigned at birth, so that you can see more information about your cohort. You can also do a funnel. This is just saying group 1, which is our group 2 has more participant counts, and then we funneled it down by group 1 to give you that total count, which is also really nice. Once you've included everything that you would like about your cohort, you go to create cohort and give it a name. So I'll give it hypertension, and then I'll put it at 913. And you can also give your cohort a description. If you have other collaborators in your cohort and you kind of want to remember what you did, adding a description is also very helpful. So then, as I mentioned, once you create a cohort, you can do something. You can create another cohort, create a review set, or move on over to the Dataset Builder. I'm going to show you really quickly the review set so that you can see what it looks like. So this is just a really nice way to kind of look more about your cohort, just line by line, if you would like. This is an optional step. It isn't required. So you can go up to 10,000, but my cohort is pretty small. So I'm just going to select 2,000, or I'm going to create my name, sorry. Hypertension cohort review. And I'm just going to select 2,000 of those participants. If you have a really large cohort, again, you can only go up to 10,000. But this is really nice because now you can say, okay, look, I'm pulling these cohort of participants, and you can look at each participant in turn if you would like. This just kind of help you see where your cohort is going to land, and is this really the population of interest for your project? It just allows you to do this without spinning up an environment. The goal of this is just to give you a quick idea. It won't modify what's happening from the cohort that you built, but gives you an idea of how your cohort lands. You can also look at the conditions your participants have, this specific participant has, the visit type. So sometimes this is very helpful to say or validate this cohort is what I would like to use. One thing to note, you can add annotations here about that participant. This is just for your knowledge only. You'll still have to go in and modify it within your notebook, but this is just to help you as you kind of think through your cohorts. You can add free text, drop down, add a value, etc. So if you are an educator and you want to help students think through what is a good population of interest, what are things to consider as you formulate your scientific plan, this cohort review is a nice way to kind of break that down. So going back to the data tab, I'm going to show you the Dataset Builder. The Dataset Builder is the second one here. So as I mentioned, it has a nice 3-step approach. You'll select your cohort, your concept set, and then once you do those, the values for the columns will populate in the 3rd column. So I'm going to use the cohort that I built earlier as well. You can also click here if you want to just see high-level statistics about your cohort to make sure you're grabbing the right one. You can do that. Now, I wanted to highlight our pre-packaged concept sets, and we have them listed here. So you can pull in all surveys, or you can pull a survey in at a time. This is going to pull all the survey items, not just one item. It'll pull all the survey items. So just be thoughtful about that. You can bring in Fitbit data. You can bring in socioeconomic data as well, and the short read whole genome sequencing data. Now, most of you will need to create a custom concept set, which is kind of hidden in this blue plus sign, which is our concept set selector. So once you select that, you can see that it's kind of similar to the Cohort Builder. It has all the domains and program data that's available. You can search by keyword or just search in each of those domains. So I do want to still look at hypertension for my cohort. So I'm going to add that same criteria I did from the Cohort Builder into the concept set selector, but this time I just selected this first concept. And I'm going to save that concept. You can use an existing one or a new set. So I'll call it 913. You can also add a description similar to the Cohort Builder and save. From there, you're going to ask to add other parts of a concept set. So let's say you wanted to add an EHR condition and survey. You'll need to go add another concept set to that as well. So if you wanted to have information from the personal and family health history survey, you can add that, which is a separate domain. So let's see if there's hypertension here. So they have self-reported hypertension, including yourself, who in your family has high blood pressure. You might want to select that option, finish and review, and save concept set. So I'm going to say personal family health history as my concept set for just that one question item. Now I'm ready to create a data set. So I've selected the concepts I want. I'm going to use the cohort I created, and then you'll scroll to the bottom to find your custom concept sets. So we have our personal family health history. And what you'll notice, it'll say survey at the top, correct? Watch what happens when I add hypertensive 913. This is important. So added condition. So if I scroll down, you'll see that we have condition and then survey. It's going to pull in two different data frames because those are two different data types. And so when you go to preview table, you'll notice there's two different tables here. I think that's a common misconception that it'll pull it all in one. No, it'll pull two different data frames. The nice thing about the preview is that you can look through and make sure it has everything that you would like. But I just kind of want to note that's a lot of information. You may not need the condition type concept name, or you may not need the condition source value. So this is where you can kind of pick and choose what concepts you want to keep or columns. And the nice thing is we include some descriptions about each of the column fields to help you indicate which one you would like to keep and which one you would like to not keep in your data frame. If everything looks good, you can then go to create a data set and give it a name. So I'll call it demo 913, and then save it. And then when you're ready, now this saves it as a data set. Let's say you're not ready to analyze, that's okay. You're going to go back to the data tab, and you're going to find all the things we created today. It'll show all for the cohorts. You'll see there it is, hypertension. So if you want to edit it or come back later, it's there. Same for our cohort review, concept sets, and data sets. So you can always review it later. But if you're ready to analyze, you're going to go back and select everything that you selected before and then analyze. A couple quick notes about the export. The only direct export within the Researcher Workbench is for Jupyter Notebooks. So you can choose a notebook. I already have a notebook, so I would choose that one. That's in our language, so I'm not going to change that. And you can even preview the code. But if you need to utilize a new notebook, or you want to go into SAS or RStudio, so if you're using SAS, you're going to have to copy this to your clipboard and then create a SAS environment and then paste it into your SAS. The same for RStudio. You'll need to copy it and into the clipboard and add it to your RStudio app. I already have a notebook, just really quickly. So this query is basically everything we just did. Well, this is a previous cohort and data set I made, but you'll notice it gives a pre-generated data set and then automatic name. You can change this. If you're used to SQL, you can make this easier to find. So you can make this like hypertension SQL paste and then update your data frame name as well, so that you know what you're working with. But this is just doing the heavy lifting for you so that you don't have to use SQL. Now, this SQL is pretty long. It's because it's combining the things that we did in the cohort builder and the dataset builder. So it's saying pull these person IDs and pull this information about these person IDs, and a very easy point and click interface. So then when you run this in your notebook, it'll bring in your data frame. A couple of things to note. From here, it will be on you to kind of clean the data, remove duplicates, and do what you need to do for downstream analysis. But we took the heavy lifting of the SQL out of it. Okay, so that being said, I gave you guys a lot of information. So I wanted to go explore some of our first support resources about the Cohort Builder and the Dataset Builder. So you can always use the User Support Hub to access any of the articles or YouTube videos that I mentioned earlier. You can go to researchallofus.org/support, or you can scan the QR code. If you still have questions, if you're like me and sometimes you think about something after a presentation, you can email us at any time at support@researchallofus.org. We're here to help you. You can also join us for one of our webinars, such as this one, or our weekly drop-in office hours. You can also post in the community, which is a forum feature on the User Support Hub, to see how other people made considerations as they create their cohort or data set. And when we continue to add new offerings, so if you have some feedback about the cohort or dataset builder, we love to hear from you. You can still email us at support@researchallofus.org. And with that, I am done talking. I would love to hear from you all and your questions.